You're listening to Expertly Said, a podcast on the art and impact of communication. I'm Kristen Sweeney, founder and CEO of Every Little Word. My guest today is Sean Sheffler-Collins, Director of Global Scientific Communication and Content at Astellas Pharma. Sean is a global medical affairs professional with 14 plus years of medical communications experience supporting cross-functional collaboration across matrix teams to develop and implement integrated strategic medical communications plans for omnichannel scientific content, supporting medical strategy across numerous therapeutic areas across the product lifecycle. Prior to working in medical communications, Sean did research on the molecular mechanisms of synapse formation as the brain develops and obtained a PhD in neuroscience from the University of Pennsylvania. Sean, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you. That was a real tongue twister for me. Molecular mechanisms of synapse formation. I made it through. Really happy to be here with you. So, uh, I'd like to kind of get into your origin story a little bit. You've obviously got background in scientific research. Was that sort of your first love and comms came later? Can you take us back as far
Um,
as you'd like?
yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, so I think, let's see. I, it wasn't really a straight line at all, but I went to college thinking I wanted to do psychology and that I wanted
Okay.
to, help people, be a therapist, something like that. And then I had to take some biology classes as part of my first year at college, and from there, I started to learn about hard science, molecular biology, and I got excited about that. And I ended up getting a summer internship at the National Institute of Health doing research, and that sort of I guess sparked my interest in research. And I think I guess I've always been interested in sort of understanding like how the brain works and what makes us different, like differences
Yeah.
between us. I always think about like I have a brother, and I always think about we have almost the same genes, and yet we're very different people. And I really want
Sure.
to sort of dig in of why that is and how we get there, and that I guess led me into research. And yeah, I think I in so I was interested in a research career up until I was in grad school, and then I sort of decided that the academic track was not necessarily for me. And I think I sort of came back to the thing that I really liked doing when I was younger, which was reading and writing, and the idea of sort of being a writer in some form was really appealing,
Yeah.
and that sort of helped me. It was a job I could do. It required very specialized skills, which I had, and there were a lot less people, I guess, interested in it than being a professor. So that sort of helped me help me find my way into medical communications.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting. I love your point of like most writers are voracious readers, right? It's
Yeah.
just how we sort of like understand the world and uh through sort of osmosis, like just absorb what it means to kind of have style and tell stories. So that's awesome. Um,
Yeah, and I think that's also like a hard skill for scientists, I guess, is to tell a story, right? We're very inclined to having a lot of data and trying to fit as much in as possible. And I think hopefully one of my skills is to sort of step back a little bit and think about how do we make a story out of this? How can it
yeah,
be interesting to someone and also sort of satisfying that you get from point A to point B through the course of
yeah,
reading or presentation, something like that. Yeah.
yeah. And was communications in life sciences just a natural extension of that interest in neuroscience and kind of your academic career of wanting to
Um,
stick with science, or did you entertain other ideas,
no, I
other
did want to
industries?
stick with science. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think I really enjoy that scientific, just learning new things. I think I also, I sort of get bored easily, and I like doing different things. So that was
Yeah.
sort of a way to stay on top of it and, keep myself interested and engaged. So that was a good fit.
Yeah.
Although
Yeah.
I will say I didn't really know exactly what I was getting into when I started, so that was definitely I learned a lot about what the field was. I don't think I really had an idea getting in of
Yeah, what
what
was
I
that
was
transition
doing.
like for you? What was maybe surprising? Because you obviously had writing skills, so
Yeah.
what was surprising about a communications role specifically?
Yeah, I think a couple things. I mean, one big difference was that, you know, as a student or a researcher, I sort of did everything. Like I would do experiments, I would make slides, I would write a manuscript, do all different things. And then as I moved into medical communications, it became a lot more focused. So there was someone who edited and someone who
Uh,
made great graphics, and I had to really focus on the words themselves, and a little bit of how it's presented, but really focusing on the words. And so that was a big difference to sort of learn to stay in my lane a little bit more, and also to sort of, I think, it improve my craft as well as I got into it. But
yeah, that's such an interesting sort of, I don't know if it's a tension. I think I've experienced that
yeah,
as a tension, to be honest. Like as a um, owner of a small boutique agency, having to make decisions fairly with some regularity about how big our sort of slice of the pie will be
yeah,
and in what ways do we want to grow and expand? Do we want to be hyper niched and say, look, we're not going to entertain an image, or we focus only on long form content. We won't touch your LinkedIn, or no, we
yeah,
will, like, we are thinking about, your thought leadership more holistically. So we want to cover multiple touch points. And um, it's, there are many different philosophies on it, and I think more recently we're seeing that a bit of a swing with AI, of course. We got about 5
yeah,
minutes in before it came up. Um, that idea of like an expansion almost back to generalization is something I'm seeing
yeah,
more broadly, or at least conversation about it of, well, now you have assistants, so you should be able to not be so niche and kind of like do more and be able to like handle more pieces of the process. So it's been an interesting thing to kind of watch evolve over my career,
yeah.
and to make decisions about it too, of where we want to be narrow and focused and where we want to kind of be more expansive and open to something new.
Yeah, no, agreed. And it's, yeah, I agree. It's sort of moving back to yeah, you have more tools, but also it's a lot more work for 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 one person. So
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
specialists is also sort of less work, but it is what
Yeah.
it is. we, we,
Yeah.
we
Yeah. And
yeah,
I know you mentioned like not liking to get bored. There's
yeah,
also that tension of, if your remit is sort of really deep work, like I find that I like a blend of deep work and lighter
yeah,
things because my brain can only operate in one of those modes for so long.
yeah.
And so sometimes I think it can, if you get too specialized, you sort of run up against that's not a sustainable job to do full time, is like
Yeah, no,
work
agreed.
that's
And
that intense.
yeah, and there have been times in my career where I was like just sitting by myself writing a manuscript for days and days and days, and I knew that like
Yeah.
that was not for me. I need to sort of shake it up, do some different things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though I
Absolutely.
enjoy writing, I still, yeah, wanna
Yeah.
wanna do some other stuff.
So let's talk about some of those things. Can you give me a little bit of the landscape of your current role and audiences you're trying to reach right now?
Yeah. So I mean, so my current role is, in medical affairs. So the primary audience are, you know, physicians, healthcare providers is the key audience. In terms of what we do, there's the scientific publications, then there's we create content for the MSL, the medical science liaisons who interacts with physicians, and then we also create educational content as well as content when the physicians ask the pharmaceutical company questions.
Hmm.
So it's there
Great.
a
Uh,
couple different types.
yeah. Any, what's the specific types of physicians you're targeting right now?
Yeah, so right now I work in a hematology oncology. So it's a
Okay.
sort of rare type of leukemia I'm working on now. So it's a
Got
very
it.
sort of niche population.
Yeah.
So that's yeah, it's different. I mean it depends. I've had the experience to work on a lot of different types of uh pharmaceuticals and at different stages. So it's interesting to sort of get in and have a much more specialized audience right now than I've had at other
Yeah.
times. Yeah.
What do you see? I know we're going to talk a little bit about attention to just
Yeah.
kind of preview our one big idea shortly, but I'm curious what you see like working well in the landscape in terms of reaching HCPs more generally right now.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think one of the key things that I try a lot to do is that, they're very busy and they're very smart and they don't necessarily want me to tell them what to think. So one of the
Mm,
things that I'm trying to do is to they know there's specific type of information they want to get from the pharmaceutical company, and I want to be able to provide them with that information, that data, and then I think they prefer to sort of internalize it on their own. They don't they're able to draw their own conclusions. They don't necessarily want ours. So it's a
that's
balance.
interesting.
It's a balance of not saying, I mean, you can say, "Look how great this is," but then they say, show me the data." They
Hmm.
don't wanna know, what my take on it is or the company's take on it. They wanna
Yeah.
come to their own conclusion.
This makes me think about like um in I'll say a model that I think is becoming, if not already kind of outdated, but this idea of, back in the day, you'd write this top of funnel content, like blog
Yeah,
posts, right? And it would be like the ones that are sort of meant to be neutral and they're not selling your company, but oh, maybe, what started, what often would kind of creep in is people be like, well, can we maybe like pitch this so that the obvious answer, the
right.
obvious solution is our company. And you've got to be really careful with that because, like, of course, you should be able to promote yourself and put your own messaging out there. It's, e- exponentially more important to do that with integrity, of course, when you're talking about scientific data. But at the same time, you can kind of um, actually diminish your own credibility if you push a certain narrative too hard. And like you said, people are
Yeah,
smart. We're all very online now. We are sort of used to, s- some of the old tricks that maybe
yeah,
were effective before. And again, I don't say tricks in a sort of deceitful way,
right.
but I think that more than ever, you've got to be really mindful of maybe less is more, like you said, in terms of kind of layering your opinion or your narrative
Yeah.
on top of the data.
Right, yeah, and I think I mean everyone is sort of a much savvier consumer than we used to be, and they understand
Yeah.
like where's this information coming from, right? And that we all have to evaluate it for ourselves. So I think that's important to not, as you said, sort of overstep and ruin our credibility because ultimately when I'm providing the information, I want a physician to think about, what would this mean for my patients, right?
Yeah.
Could this help me treat patients more effectively? I guess is my goal working on
Hmm.
this medical side. So, I'm trying to say, hey, look, we have this interesting data, but they're gonna filter it through their own lens anyway. So I would rather, hopefully try and be more objective and, meet them where they're at instead of trying to tell them what to do
Yeah.
ultimately.
Do too much persuasion.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about how you um how you collaborate inside your organization
Yeah.
to work with the folks generating the data. Um, can you share a little bit about maybe across your career
Yeah.
what you found to be effective in that kind of collaboration, and maybe what some of the challenges you've encountered are?
Yeah. I mean, I think always so it's always, I guess, better when there are, less cooks in the kitchen, right? I mean, I think the really figuring out sort of who are the key team and decision makers and identifying them, and then sort of figuring out, how how do we how do we do this together? So I think getting the right players. I mean, within the organization, as I said, we're somewhat specialized, so it's really important to have people that go across different roles and they can sort of bring their own experience and expertise. Because I think that's something that's super helpful to me. Is like, so we have this data, but what is someone who's in that physician, right? So I sit in the global part of the organization, but there's
Mhm.
someone like the MSL who's directly talking to a physician. So, I want to get their perspective as well of, is what do you think of this information? And the same of, other people with medical degrees, and also, someone who works, with the regulatory environment, and someone who has legal expertise in other areas, to just see, what do you think of this information? Does it make sense? And then obviously I can sort of bring, I see it, I guess, less as like me coming into the meeting with an agenda, and I see myself as more
Yeah.
of the sort of the communicator. So, I want to just listen and sort of help people say what they want to say. It's less about my take on it. I wanna hear what they wanna do, and try and help them get there. And, try and figure out, as we were sort of talking about earlier, how do we make this into a story? How do we keep it sort of concise? How do we really get someone to see what's important quickly in the
Mhm.
information that we have? Because I think,
Yeah.
no no matter what, everyone is busy and doesn't have that much time. So,
Right.
we're fighting for their attention, and we have to yeah, we have to figure out how to get them the right information that they want to see quickly, and hopefully, still be able to tell some sort of story, some sort of context, to help them hopefully see it the way that we see it, and why we're excited to share it with them.
Yeah. I imagine that that approach where you described that, really coming in and listening first, probably goes a long way toward really positive collaboration with your colleagues, of them feeling heard, and certainly, like, letting the science lead the way,
Yeah.
in those narratives that are developed. Um, there's a To me, the big challenge when you get those differing perspectives is kind of the part that makes your brain hurt, but in a good
Yeah.
way, which is like, what do I do with that now? I've got to
Yeah.
somehow synthesize all of that into one message, one deliverable, one asset,
Yeah.
one voice. Um, and I think that that requires, strong relationships in the organization, but also a lot of just like deep thinking, honestly, about what's in, what's out, what kind of goes onto the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
How can we accommodate the different priorities without just diluting having it just kind
Yeah.
of feel like the kitchen sink has gone in there.
Right. Yeah, no, agreed. And I think we have to, like, try out a bunch of things, right? It's not just that we, like, hear a bunch of perspectives and they're like, okay, well, this is the one to go with. I think you have to sort of take it to the next step and see, this is what we thought, but can, does that tell the right story? Does that give the right
Yeah.
information? Is that really the right message, right? It sounds good, but does it when it's scrutinized by someone, does it still hold up? And I think
Yeah.
that's where you sort of, pressure test some of the information and try and see, like, if, you know, I have these great smart colleagues, if I tell them this, do they believe me, right? Or do
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
think, no, that doesn't work? And I think that, to me, that's really helpful to sort of pressure test it, with the same group as well, to say, okay, thi-
Mhm.
this is what you told me, and then this is what I came up with. Does that work?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything, we can poke holes in, within our organization, to say, no, that I thought about it. Now I see it come out that doesn't really make sense anymore. That, that does work. That's exactly what I'm going to say is great. But yeah, I think it takes you know, takes a lot of back and forth. Which
Yeah.
is good. I think that, it's painful, but also we get to the right, deliverable, the right product, right, based on that back and forth. Um,
Yeah, I love that you called out that it's painful. I'm working on something right now, and something I talk about is this idea of like that grit is a like maybe the secret sauce of
yeah,
like actually moving things into the world. And I think sometimes we feel that friction and we think like, well, this is supposed to be a system. Like that friction means something is wrong. But
yeah,
the reality is you've got all these different perspectives. You've got people with competing schedules. You've got just a lot of challenges, not all of which can be fixed or are even sort of in your control.
yeah,
And so the ability to kind of push through and persevere, even if it takes more follow-ups than it should, even if it's more conversations than you planned, I think is kind of not necessarily a sign that something is wrong, but maybe a sign that you're facing things as they actually are.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
always work to improve the system, but acknowledge where there are that friction is going to be part of it, and you've just gotta figure out how can you move forward anyway.
yeah. No, I mean, I think you get something better when there is disagreement and friction.
Yeah.
Not when everyone just says, "Oh, that's great. Let's go ahead." I know I was just talking to a colleague about that recently. Where he was just saying, like, he has a team of people, and he was saying how, he wants them to disagree with them. The point, we there is some hierarchy, but he wants to have team members who tell him that he's wrong. He doesn't,
Yeah.
doesn't want everyone to just say, "Oh, you're on the next level, so what you say must be right. We should go with that." I mean, I think that I think is very, very important. And like you said, that, like, I think it being sort of taken through the fire makes it better in the
Mhm.
end, even though it hurts along the way, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So I want to transition us now into our One Big Idea segment. This is a portion of the show where we dig a little bit deeper into one specific topic.
Yeah,
We've already touched a little bit on it in our conversation about HCPs, but today we're going to talk about attention.
yeah,
So I'd love to hear first why this is timely, relevant, important to you, this concept of attention. And
mm,
maybe also what we even mean, like kind of drawing a line around or a circle around like what are we talking about when we talk about attention in this setting?
yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, I mean, so I think some of our research says that we only get about a minute of an HCP's time, where they're sort of going, they're seeing patients, they have a busy day, they have to keep up with the literature, they have to do different stuff. We have about a minute of their time, right? So either, either you can hold their attention, or they're just going to go to the next email, open the next tab on their browser. There's
Yeah.
always a lot going on. So I do think that we're all sort of fighting for attention. And I think, you were talking about blog posts and other things. I mean, there's just so much content with social media, with videos, with, everything is happening at once. And, we're all sort of being bombarded with that. And, I think even though some things are different, and HCP is also, a person too scrolling, who's bored in a
Yeah.
meeting, scrolling on their phone and,
Yeah.
waiting to, pick up a kid from their activity and all that kind of stuff. So, we don't have a lot of chances to get their attention. And, I think that's yeah, a big challenge. And I think even, you mentioned, it's hard to get around with AI and these other things. I mean, there's just so much more content than any of us can consume as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a that's a that's a I think a fight that happens all the time about sort of, who even sees what you do. And I think a lot of, with us, you don't have that many chances either you think you have this amazing data you want to share with someone, and, you know, you don't have that many chances with that person. Maybe, you have something positive, and then you can start, further conversations, or sometimes, they just click to the next thing, and that's all you
Yeah.
get. So yeah, it's it's a
I'm
challenge.
curious. I'm curious how, you talked about AI and
Yeah.
the proliferation of more and more content, and things are just busier than ever. I find this so relatable.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm constantly culling my inbox of things that I'm like, "You're great.
Yeah.
I just can't,
Yeah.
I can't keep up, to try and protect my time and my bandwidth."
Yeah.
So, I'm curious, like, if you're finding that, are those, like, are congresses or, like, in-person touch points playing a different role now than they used to? Are they more prominent for you? Is the role of digital, changing in that noisier
Yeah.
environment? Like, how do you see kind of more broadly, medical communications
Yeah.
adapting?
No, for sure. I mean, I think congresses are like a big time for us for sure, because that's a time where, ATPs, everyone has their attention is totally focused on one thing. I mean, it's only for a couple days, but their attention is there, and they're excited to learn, and that's a great time to, engage with them. I think also,
Yeah.
yeah,
I was gonna say it's like, uh, it's not just quantity, but like, how
yeah,
many times have we heard quantity but quality? But that's what really strikes me as you're talking about this is, like, they're in a different space. They're not that
yeah,
60 seconds they might have for you, it could become more if they, walk by your booth and wanna
yeah,
stop or engage someone in conversation. That's not possible, when they're in between patients or,
yeah,
scarfing down a sandwich on their lunch break and scrolling on their phone. Like,
yeah,
it's a different kind of, um, attention maybe
yeah.
that they're able to give, something that's, maybe a little bit, like, richer.
Yeah, no, I think absolutely. And I think also, that does happen with us sometimes when we have like a big publication, as well as another time where there's something, something is published, it's picked up by news media or on social media, and they, that's another chance where there's something, exciting that's happened, and there's a reason for them to get, someone to open a link or to scroll to something. And, I think for me, it's also my job to try to, as far as we get into the omni-channel type approach, to try and have the content available to them in different forms so that
Yeah.
they can see it in that way. I mean, I think that's one of the things I do. It's not that I have, 10 different types of content. It's just the same study or the same data, but, trying to
Mhm.
put it in the different formats so that way if someone asks, it's available. Um,
Yeah. Really
if
finding
there's
ways to
someone
meet people where they are. Yeah.
who wants to watch a video, then we have a video. If it's someone who just, wants you to send them the manuscript, then we'll send them the manuscript. Whatever we want to do to try and meet people where they are, I think helps too. Because again, if you ask for something, you don't get it, the odds of you going back to it are pretty slim, unless it was really
Yeah.
you were really already you already thought it was important. You're probably not going to go back. It's going to be one of the things on your on your to-do
Yeah.
list, or
Yeah.
one of your one of the tabs in your browser where you're like,
Yes.
now that I have
Yes.
20 open, then I don't remember why I clicked on number 4. So I'm just gonna close
Yeah.
it and try and declutter and get back to where I need to be. So
Definitely. I like this perspective too on the idea that, you know, um, I think especially on social media, there's a lot of sort of hype around like this is the next new format and
yeah,
like everybody wants to watch it on video. I mean, certainly you can look at something like TikTok and like see
yeah,
the extent to which there is some truth to that, but
yeah,
um there's some research. I don't have the exact information on hand, but the idea that even today, like there are different kinds of readers, and some
yeah,
readers are going to skim all of your headlines, and some readers are going to read every word all the way down to the bottom of the page.
right,
That's kind of personality. And so being able to, as you said, meet them where they are with the kind of information and the depth of information. It's not necessarily because you're chasing fads. It's to really
yeah,
try and like have an impact in the way that people want to consume information. I know for me, I would much rather read something than watch a video most
yeah,
of the time. I can skim it, I can go back and review parts, like there are certain things I love about that. Many other people would definitely disagree.
yeah,
So that I just like that perspective on what it means to be omni-channel and linking it really back to the people that you're serving, and how you can give them information in a way that they're going to be able to take it in and get the most value from it.
yeah. No, agreed. I mean, I think, yeah. I guess I'm old enough that, yeah, I would rather read than watch videos, but a lot of people do. And
Yeah.
I think that's also a point of the TikTok and other things and Reels is that it's fast, right? The other thing is that it's short because you're only paying attention for so long until there's something else, the next
Right.
thing's coming.
Right.
So that's again, the challenge is you really want to, make them remember remember
Yeah.
you.
So we've talked about, you have maybe a minute of an HCP's attention.
Yeah.
We've talked about, maybe format and channel of how
Yeah.
you meet them where they are in that presentation and having it the same information available in different formats. What beyond that do you see as being effective in terms of like really earning that attention or earning the right to kind of get that second 30 seconds or maybe earn a like a second look or a closer look?
Yeah. I
Is
mean, I
it
think,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think, that's also a time where we want to have something engaging, right? I think we want to not just like look at something, but hopefully engage. And again, to me, it doesn't matter what it is, whether they then click the link to read the manuscript, or they go to our website and get information, or they go look it up. That it's sort of you know in the ideal world, there would also be an action associated with it, right? We get the attention, and then there's some kind of action, and
Hmm.
I think that's where there's opportunities, but how to get that's hard. I mean, I think a lot of that is about being credible for me, and also trying to sort of, as much as I can. I mean, obviously I'm not the HCP, but to try and speak their language, to try and,
Yeah.
give them the information they want. And a lot of times in my experience, that's sort of the data itself without a lot of commentary and without a lot of words, but really like, I have your time. This is, this is the one thing I want to show you that I think will convince you of the benefits
Yeah.
of what we're doing. And yeah, really sort of honing in on that. Sort of
I think,
across the content and in different
yeah.
ways. Yeah.
I think relevance too. I think maybe there's an easier sort of mapping of audience data sets, like who
Yeah.
this is for. There's maybe some pretty direct lines you can draw, but certainly in other sectors that we work in, it's like it could be the driest,
Yeah.
thing in the world, but to the right engineer,
Yeah.
it's gold. It's a gold
Yeah.
mine of information. It's so valuable. And so I think really that comes back to like understanding that perspective and the relevance to them. And I think sometimes that requires loosening up a little bit what you think of as engaging. Sometimes
Yeah.
that is, it's flashy, it grabs my attention, draws the eye, whatever that may be. But sometimes it is being so relevant and resonant
Yeah.
that that's what captures the attention because that person feels really seen, identified, kind of their needs are
Yeah.
understood.
Yeah, no, I agree. And yeah, and obviously now we have like some, you know, analytic data to set, to try and reach, who we think is most likely to receive our message, right? So that is helpful. But again, I think it's really important to really consider the audience and speak their language and try
Mhm.
and try and meet them where they are. Like you were saying, whatever it is, if there's something they're excited about, then you want to give that to them because it doesn't matter how cool it looks. They understand the significance themselves and
Yeah.
they're ready to use that information.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned it once, was just like being concise.
Yeah.
So tell me about the value of that in a world where you've got, 60 seconds. How do you approach that in your work?
Yeah, I mean, I think that being concise to me is more powerful because I think sometimes like I get a really long email or I open something up and then there's so much text and sometimes I just like sort of zone out and gloss over. And to me, I think that's really the most meaningful thing is, can you say something in sort of, I mean, to me it's a challenge, right? In as few words as possible can I say what I want to say. um and to me that's really powerful. And that's also something I know it's like it's a funny thing like with my wife and I, right? She like really likes things that are like really long and really detailed and really descriptive. And for me, I like, I think of someone like Hemingway or some writer who's like very concise and yet there's like a lot in it. That's like
Mhm.
my favorite is that it's both, you know, it's powerful and it's descriptive and it tells a story, but it's short. And
Yeah.
I think I'm definitely guilty of like picking books based on length sometimes because I just know like that's what I want is something short. And I want it to be short and to be interesting and to sort of take me somewhere. And then,
Be
I'm someone
over.
who loses attention and I want to do the next thing. So I want to be
Yeah.
fully engaged with that. And to me,
Mhm.
that's being concise and being powerful. And I think, I know obviously the technology is changing. I mean, one of the things I find frustrating about a lot of the AI technologies, it's very like long-winded and show-offy. And to me, that really doesn't resonate with me. That, it really feels good if there's like, you know, the perfect word where you can get rid of, a whole sentence and you can just use one word. To me, that's like really I feel really great about something like that. I really like get into the get into the details and try and keep it short and sweet.
Yeah. I think the first editing exercise I can recall was I believe it was in middle school, and we were tasked with editing the Gettysburg Address,
Yeah.
considered like an amazing, shining example of a speech. And I forget what it was, but there was like a certain word count, and we had to edit
Yeah.
it down, and it was
Yeah.
hard,
Yeah.
but very satisfying, as you said.
Right. Yeah. And I think, but again, you sort of want to, it's even harder in my mind that you like still want to keep something rich about it, right? Because you could summarize something in few words that it has
Yes,
no meaning, but that's not the
this
point.
is
Isn't
something that,
isn't that
yeah,
it's just short, but it's still you need to retain that. And or I think of something like the State of the Union address or something like it's a whole hour, but and now we have like news sites and different things. We're saying everything is like what are the 3 takeaways for this? What are the 5 takeaways for that? So how do we sort of? I think a lot about how do we sort of like what I'm doing, what are what is the one big takeaway, right? And
yeah,
what else do I need to say to get there? And
yeah,
to me, it's a lot easier to edit, you know, from 100 words to 50 words than it is to write down, pages and then try and sharpen it up. So I try and do more sort of
yeah,
editing as I go.
yeah,
I think that's
yeah,
important. And then also like if you're doing a slide or a video or whatever, you have visuals, right? So you want to it's I just like when I make a slide, I try and have as few words as possible, but I do want to that's because I want you to look at it too and then
mm-hmm,
and then
mm-hmm.
see it for yourself.
Engage, right? It's a visual aid,
Yeah.
not a self-directed
Yeah, I
slide
don't
deck that is the presentation. There's a
yeah,
presenter there for a
I
reason.
don't want you to like to be able to read the whole thing by yourself and get the whole
Yeah,
point. I want you
right,
to pay attention to the speaker because there's not that much text, so you're focused on
right,
what they're
right.
saying and what I want you to get from that information.
Yes, because at the end of the day, like in some situations, in some circumstances, the takeaways are good enough for us. And in some
Yeah,
circumstances, we actually need and want to be influenced by the speech itself. And that experience is not captured in,
yeah.
your bullet point takeaways. I think there's still definitely a place for both
Yeah,
of that.
no, I totally agree. Again, I think it's all about sort of who you're speaking to and what you want them to get out of it and
Yeah.
whether if you have the chance and they have an hour then use the whole hour don't don't,
Yeah.
don't waste the time, right? But
Yeah.
if you have 1 minute then you got to have your elevator pitch of like this is why you should
Hmm.
care, this is why you
Yeah.
should give me more
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Awesome. I want to move us. Speaking of time, we are running a little bit short on it. So I want to transition us to our lightning round. This is the
Okay.
last word. Every guest gets the same 5 questions. Sean,
Okay,
are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Question 1. What is your favorite word to say out loud?
Crisp.
Crisp?
Yeah. I just like the way it sounds.
Very, very evocative. Just like a head of iceberg lettuce just like popped into my mind.
Yeah, or an
Uh,
apple. I always think of an apple, like
yeah.
a cold
Nice.
apple makes that satisfying sound. So I
Yes.
don't
Crisp followed by the crunch.
know. Yeah.
Uh, Question 2. What's a word you know from reading, but you are not sure how to pronounce it?
Well, t today it was hematopoietic. so,
Well done. Well done.
so there you go. From from
That's a good
from
one.
from my from my job today. So there you go.
Nice. Question 3. What's one phrase or saying you wish could be retired for good?
Yeah. I think I think when people say something literally, my kids say it all the time, and it drives me nuts.
But
Like
they do not mean it literally.
they do not mean it literally. It is not the opposite of figurative. It's just a fact.
Yeah. Yep. Nice. What's a communication practice or principle that's non-negotiable for you?
I mean, I think less is more is my key principle.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Mm. We
Consistent.
covered that. Nothing more. There's nothing more to say about it. Leave it there. And last one. What's the last thing you read, heard, or watched that really stuck with you?
Um, I really like the show Shrinking, because it has I really like the balance between it having like a lot of emotional resonance, but also being like something that I laugh out loud to. And I think it's so hard to find things that are both funny and serious. There was also this book, Fundamentally, I just read. That was another one. It's like a very very serious topic, but I found myself laughing more than I do for anything else. So I guess that's my sort of sweet spot.
Nice. Nice. When things can truly, I mean, get a laugh out loud, it's a pretty great feeling,
Yeah.
actually. It's a high bar to clear.
So yeah,
Awesome.
I could watch Harrison Ford being a grumpy old man for a
Yes.
long time.
I'm not sure how much he's acting for that role, but
Yeah.
Well, Sean, thank you so much for joining us today. If our listeners want to learn more about you, where can they go to find you?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is the best place to check me
Awesome.
out.
We can
Cool.
include that link in the show notes for everyone.
Sounds good.
Great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's great talking with you.
You too. That's it for this episode of Expertly Said, produced by Every Little Word. If you liked what you heard, please support us by subscribing, sharing the episode with a colleague, or leaving a review. If you want to connect, you can find me on LinkedIn. Just search Kristen Sweeney. And if you'd like more insights on communication and content, subscribe to our newsletter using the link in the show description. Thanks for listening. Talk soon.